All right, welcome back, everybody. Ready for another deep dive.
Definitely. Always up for a good deep dive.
So, today, we're going deep into the world of dating advice.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah, and, there's a lot out there, and some of it, well, it's a bit questionable.
I can imagine. Where are we going with this one?
Well, we've got a YouTube video. It's called, get this, How to Act When a Woman Ignores You. Destroy Her Ego.
Okay. Destroy her ego, huh? That's a strong title.
Right. And it's from a channel called How to Beast, so you can kind of get a sense of the vibe.
Yeah, I'm picking up what you're putting down.
And then we've got this text summary of the same video on shanedesk.com, so, kind of approaching it from a whole different angle.
Interesting. So what's our mission today? What are we trying to unpack here?
Well, I think, dating advice, it can be a real minefield out there. So we're going to take a look at some of the advice given in this video, really analyze the assumptions behind it, and hopefully learn a thing or two about, I don't know, maybe modern dating dynamics or something.
Sounds like a plan. I'm in.
Awesome. All right. So right off the bat, this video jumps into this idea that women, they intentionally ignore men as a test.
Okay, a test like to see how they'll react.
Exactly. Like it's, I don't know, some kind of universal law of dating. What do you make of that? Is there any truth to that?
Well, it's a common idea for sure, this
Mhm.
whole playing hard to get thing. But I think it's important to remember that not everyone who doesn't text back immediately is playing some kind of mind game.
Okay, so you're saying it's not always some strategic power play.
Exactly. I mean, think about it. People are busy, they have lives, they might just be preoccupied, or maybe they're just taking their time to figure out how they feel.
Right, makes sense.
It's important not to oversimplify things.
Yeah, definitely.
Right.
But the video doesn't really stop there. It goes on to say that men, they should respond with like this aggressive confidence when they're ignored, almost like it's a challenge?
Oh, I see. Like they need to rise to the occasion.
Exactly. So, what do you think? Is that always the best move? I mean, I can see that backfiring pretty quickly.
Yeah, there's definitely a fine line between confidence and arrogance.
Right.
And coming on too strong can be a major turnoff.
Yeah.
I think it's important to consider, like, what if the person is genuinely busy or maybe dealing with something personal?
Yeah, that's true.
This whole destroy her ego approach,
Yeah,
it could come across as really insensitive in those situations.
totally. It's almost like this advice assumes that everyone responds to the same tactics?
Right. It ignores the fact that dating is about, getting to know a unique individual.
Yeah, exactly.
And good communication starts with recognizing that everyone has their own style and preferences.
I love that. So it's not one size fits all, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so now here's where things get even, well, more interesting. This video, it uses this analogy of approaching a woman like it's a special ops mission.
A special ops mission. Like, what were we jumping out of planes now?
Well, not exactly, but the idea is like directness and efficiency are key. You don't want to be lingering or seeking constant reassurance. You got to make your move.
Interesting. So it's all about being like super decisive and in control.
Exactly. I mean, I get it to a certain extent, right?
Mm.
Being direct can save time, show confidence.
Yeah, I can see that. But again, it's not always the most appropriate approach.
Mm.
Imagine someone who values taking things slow,
Oh, yeah.
getting to know someone gradually, this whole like charge in tactic, it might feel really intense for them.
So it's about finding that balance,
Yeah, I think so. Finding that balance between confidence and sensitivity.
right? Reading the situation.
Exactly. Paying attention to the other person's cues and adapting your approach accordingly.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, what about this whole mixed signals thing? Where a woman shows initial interest and then pulls back.
Oh, yeah, the classic mixed signals dilemma.
The video uses examples like, giving her number but not responding to texts, or agreeing to a date and then canceling last minute. What's your take on that? Have you seen that kind of behavior in your work?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a common source of frustration in the dating world, and I could understand why.
Right. It's confusing.
From a man's perspective, it can feel like being led on and then suddenly dropped.
Yeah, the video definitely paints this picture of women being, I don't know, flaky or inconsiderate, but I'm guessing there's more to it than that.
There's always more to the story. Remember, women are navigating this complex dating landscape too.
Right?
They might feel pressured to be polite, even if they're not genuinely interested. Or maybe they're unsure of their own feelings and trying to figure things out.
So it's not necessarily about playing games or stringing someone along.
Not always. People have the right to change their minds, to realize they're not feeling it, or to prioritize other things in their lives.
That's fair. So what does the video say about how men should handle these mixed signals situations?
It basically says, avoid anything that might come across as desperate or needy.
Oh, like no pleading texts.
Right, no pleading text, no constant check-ins. Instead, it suggests focusing on setting up a concrete date.
Interesting. So instead of trying to decode these mixed signals over text, you just cut to the chase.
Exactly. See if she's actually interested in meeting up,
Yeah.
and if she's consistently unresponsive or cancels repeatedly, well, the video says it's time to walk away.
Okay. And walking away, that's presented as this, like, ultimate power move.
A power move.
Yeah, like a way for a man to regain control when he feels like he's losing it. Do you see it that way?
Hmm. It's interesting that the video uses that language of control and power moves.
Hmm.
It suggests a dynamic where one person has to win and the other has to lose. But isn't the goal of dating to find a connection?
Yeah, so maybe walking away isn't about asserting dominance then. What is it about?
Sometimes walking away is simply about self-respect, recognizing when your interest isn't being reciprocated and choosing to invest your energy elsewhere.
So it's less about winning and more about recognizing your own worth.
Exactly. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is walk away from a situation that's no longer serving you.
Okay, I like that. Now, how do you know when it's truly time to move on?
That's a really good question, and it's something we should definitely dig into. But before we do, there's one more thing in these sources that I think we need to talk about, and it's a little, well, controversial.
Oh, this is getting good. Tell me more.
Well, the Chain Desk summary of the video, it includes this section called, get this, Master the 3 Dark Triad Traits.
Hold on, the dark triad. What is that?
Right, it sounds intense, doesn't it?
Ugh.
The Dark Triad, it refers to 3 personality traits: narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy.
Oh, wow. Okay, that does sound intense. How do those traits fit into dating advice?
The summary seems to suggest that, like, mastering these traits can make you irresistible. Use your narcissistic charm to get attention, Machiavellian tactics to manipulate situations, and even a touch of psychopathic fearlessness to appear dominant.
Wow, that's a lot. I mean, it sounds ethically questionable, to say the least. Using manipulation and fear to attract someone, that doesn't sound healthy at all.
Yeah, you're not wrong. This definitely raises some red flags.
So what does all of this tell us? Like, about the whole conversation around dating and masculinity?
That's a really interesting question, and I think it's worth exploring further. But before we get too deep into the ethics of dark triad dating, I think we need to switch gears a bit and talk about some healthier alternatives. What do you say?
Sounds good to me. I'm definitely ready to dive into some more positive approaches. So we've been talking about some, well, let's just say interesting dating advice.
Yeah, intense might be another word for it.
Definitely intense. But let's shift gears a bit.
Okay, sounds good. Where are we headed?
Well, I'm thinking, what about some healthier approaches to dating? Stuff that doesn't involve like manipulating people or trying to destroy their ego.
I like where you're going with this. I think that's a really important conversation to have.
Right. So where do we even begin?
Well, I think the first step is moving away from this idea of dating as a battlefield.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, where someone have to win. What if we approached it as an opportunity to connect with other human beings?
Yeah. To build relationships based on, authenticity, vulnerability.
Exactly. And that means being upfront about your intentions, truly listening to what the other person has to say, and respecting their boundaries.
So it's about recognizing their agency.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Recognizing their right to make their own choices. And, going back to that scenario we discussed earlier, where a woman isn't reciprocating interest.
Right, right.
How can a man walk away gracefully in that situation?
Yeah, how can he honor both his own feelings and hers?
Well, it starts with acknowledging that it's perfectly normal to feel disappointed, even hurt,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
when someone you're interested in doesn't feel the same way.
It's tough.
It is. But those emotions are valid. You don't have to suppress them.
Okay, but instead of like getting angry or trying to change her mind.
Exactly. Instead of getting stuck in those feelings, a healthier approach might be to acknowledge them, allow yourself to process them, and then choose to move on.
It sounds simple.
It does, doesn't it?
But I imagine it's a lot harder to actually do. Any suggestions for how someone might, navigate that process?
It could be as simple as sending a brief, respectful message.
Okay, like what? What would you say?
Just acknowledging that you understand she's not interested. You could even wish her well. The key is to avoid, like, guilt trips or bargaining.
Right. Or trying to convince her to change her mind.
Exactly. Just a clean break with respect.
Yeah, that takes a lot of maturity.
It does. But remember, walking away in this way isn't about punishing the other person or proving a point.
It's about taking care of yourself.
Exactly. It's about prioritizing your own emotional well-being and making space for healthier, more fulfilling connections in the future.
It's about choosing, like, respect over resentment.
Perfectly said.
Yeah.
And that applies to how we treat ourselves as well.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Well, walking away from a situation where our needs aren't being met, that's a sign of self-respect, not weakness.
So it's about recognizing that we deserve to be with someone who's, genuinely excited to be with us.
Yes. Not someone we have to convince or manipulate into being interested.
Right, right. And that actually leads to another important point, this idea of, like, learning to recognize red flags and deal breakers early on.
Oh, that's huge.
Yeah. Sometimes the best advice isn't about how to win someone over. It's about knowing when to walk away.
Absolutely. It's about trusting your instincts, setting healthy boundaries, and refusing to settle for a relationship that doesn't feel right.
Okay, but how do you develop that kind of discernment, that ability to spot those red flags?
It takes time, self-reflection, and a willingness to learn from our experiences, both the positive and the negative ones.
Yeah, it's all a learning process, right?
It is. And maybe, a little help from some sources of dating advice that promote a healthier perspective.
Right, so not just listening to anyone who claims to have all the answers.
Exactly. There are so many incredible resources out there, books, podcasts, therapists, that can help us develop a more nuanced and empowering understanding of dating and relationships.
Resources that emphasize, respect, communication.
Yes.
Yeah.
And emotional intelligence over manipulation and game playing.
Because at the end of the day, dating should be about connection, not conquest, right?
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well said. So as we're kind of wrapping up this deep dive into this, well, particular piece of dating advice and all the themes it brings up, what are some key takeaways you hope our listener is walking away with?
I think the most important takeaway is this. You are not alone in navigating the often confusing world of dating.
It can be confusing.
It can be, but it's a universal experience, and it's okay to seek out support and guidance along the way.
And I hope our listener is also hearing that there are healthier, more fulfilling ways to approach dating than resorting to manipulation or those dark triad tactics we talked about earlier.
Absolutely. Authenticity, respect, open communication. These are the foundations of any strong relationship, whether it's romantic or platonic.
So it's about treating the other person and yourself as a complete individual with thoughts, feelings, needs.
Precisely. And finally, I want our listener to remember that they are worthy of love and belonging just as they are.
That's so important.
It is. Don't be afraid to be yourself, to set those boundaries, and to walk away from any situation that doesn't feel good or right.
Those are some really powerful words to keep in mind. And they apply to so much more than just dating, I think. So before we end this deep dive, I want to leave our listener with one final thought. How do you navigate the complexities of modern dating? What advice has resonated with you, and what advice have you found problematic? Think about that, and we'll be back with more deep dives in the future. But for now, keep those conversations going and stay curious. It's wild, isn't it? How much of this dating advice we've been talking about, it feels like it preys on people's insecurities,
Yeah, you're right. Dating can be so vulnerable, so I get why people would gravitate toward advice that promises, like quick results or secret strategies.
Especially with online dating, right? It's like a constant stream of profiles and messages.
Totally. And it's easy to get caught up in that feeling of competition. Like you need some kind of advantage to stand out from the crowd.
Exactly. And that's where I think this advice, it can be really tempting, right?
Oh, for sure. It plays into that desire to, like, win at dating.
To avoid rejection.
Yeah, and to feel like you have some sense of control in a situation that can feel really chaotic and unpredictable.
But the truth is, there are no shortcuts to genuine connection.
Well, not at all. Real connection, it comes from authenticity, from vulnerability.
You being yourself.
Exactly. It's about showing up as your true self and letting the other person do the same. It's about building trust and intimacy over time.
So instead of trying to master the dark triad or, become some kind of dating ninja, what are some, like, healthier ways to approach dating?
Well, I'd say, first and foremost, focus on becoming the best version of yourself. Invest in your own growth and development.
So, like, work on building a fulfilling life outside of dating.
Exactly. Pursue your passions, build strong relationships with friends and family. When you feel good about yourself and your life, you're naturally going to attract people who are genuinely interested in you.
For who you are.
Exactly. Not for what you can do for them or how you can make them feel.
Makes sense. It's about that inner confidence.
And when you do go on dates, approach them with curiosity.
Yeah, like you actually want to get to know the other person.
Right. Ask questions, listen attentively, share your own thoughts and feelings authentically.
It's not about trying to control the outcome.
Exactly. And remember, it's okay if not every date leads to a relationship.
Oh, yeah, that's important.
Every interaction, it's an opportunity to learn and grow, to get a better sense of what you're looking for in a partner.
And to practice those communication skills.
Exactly.
So dating can be a process of self-discovery.
It really can be.
Yeah.
And as you go through that process, remember to be kind to yourself.
Yeah, that's important.
Rejection, it's just a part of life.
It happens to everyone.
It does. And it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. It just means that person wasn't the right fit.
Okay, so as we wrap up our deep dive into the world of dating advice, what's like the one piece of advice you wish everyone would hear?
You know, if I could give just one piece of advice, it would be this. Trust your instincts.
Your gut feeling.
Yeah. If something feels off, if someone's behavior is raising red flags, don't ignore those signals.
So don't be afraid to walk away, even if it goes against what all the dating gurus are saying.
Exactly. You are the best judge of what's right for you. Trust your gut, set those boundaries, and never settle for less than you deserve.
Love that. Great advice.
Well, that's a wrap for this deep dive. Thanks for joining us, everyone. We'll be back soon with more deep dives into the world of, well, everything. Until then, stay curious and keep those conversations going.